The I think the Giants will upset the Washington Commanders here. And then my third upset is the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 7.5 to upset the Philadelphia Eagles. This upset is probably going to happen too because the Jaguars are depleted at wide receiver. No Christian Kirk the rest of the season. No Brian Thomas Jr. and no Gabe Davis. And it's already came out that the Jags will probably be without Brian Thomas for 2 to 3 weeks as he's injured. Now, we get to my locks of the week in the NFL. My first lock of the week is the Rams to beat the Seattle Seahawks. My second lock of the week is the Colts to beat the Vikings. And the Colts made a QB change, which I will talk about in a little bit. And then my last lock of the week is the Patriots to beat the Titans. Now we get to the primetime games. And the first primetime game is the Texans versus the Jets on Thursday Night Football. I am taking the Houston Texans to beat the New York Jets tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. I know the Texans are depleted at wideout. No Stephon Diggs. Still no Nico Collins. So their top three receivers are going to be Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie. And Robert Woods is going to play some type of role. And quite frankly, I still think the Texans are going to win this game. The Jets are a dumpster fire. They will not make the playoffs unless they win out. And this is not a winnable game for the Jets. Next Sunday Night Football, we got the Colts and the Vikings. And I am taking the Indianapolis Colts here to win. They changed quarterbacks and went back to Joe Flacco, which after this segment, I will briefly cover that QB change. But I think the Colts do win this game somehow. And then on Monday Night Football is the game of the week between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are another team that's depleted, but it's at wide receiver. And I think the Buccaneers do need to make a trade for a wide receiver. And I will give you some names to watch out for later on in the show. But the thing is, I think the Bucs can win this game if they play smart and they don't turn the ball over. Yes, I'm looking at Baker Mayfield. He had 2 interceptions last week. Can he stay turnover free this week against the Chiefs? On Sunday, the early window starts with the Cowboys and the Falcons. I am taking the Falcons here to beat the Cowboys. The Falcons had a big win against the Buccaneers last week, and I think the Falcons are going to destroy the Cowboys. Then we got the Broncos and Ravens. This is another good game. But I'm going to go with the Broncos to win here. Oh, wait, no. Correction. I'm going Ravens. Give me the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Denver Broncos. Even though I do think this is going to be a good football game this week between the Broncos and the Ravens. Bills and Dolphins. Dolphins fans turn away and don't listen. I think the Bills are going to annihilate you on Sunday. And it's not going to be particularly close. Panthers and Saints. Like I said a minute ago, I am taking the Saints to lose this game to the Panthers. Give me Carolina. Give me the Panthers. Bengals and Raiders. I think the Bengals get back on track and they beat the Raiders here to improve to 4-5 on the season. Browns and Chargers. I had trouble choosing the winner of this game, but I'm going to go with the Browns here even though I do think the Chargers could pull the upset. Giants Commanders. Like I said a minute ago, I am taking the Giants to win this game. I think it's going to be a close game. The question is, can Washington build off of that win last week against the Bears? If they can, then they're in good shape. But if they're looking ahead to the rest of their schedule, then they might be in trouble. Big trouble. Then we've got the late window. Oh no, Patriots and Titans is the last early window game on Sunday. Give me the Patriots to win. The Titans are a mess. The Titans are a mess. And that explains why they traded DeAndre Hopkins to Kansas City. Now we get to the late window, and there's 4 games in the late window. Bears and Cardinals is the first one. I am taking the Chicago Bears to bounce back against the Arizona Cardinals here and get the win. And I think the Bears win this game, but it's close. And there's a shot that the Bears could lose this game somehow. Don't know how, but they could. Then we got the Jaguars and Eagles. I like the Eagles, but I don't think they're going to win this game. I don't. I think it's going to be Jacksonville that wins this game. Even though, like I said earlier, they're depleted at wide receiver. Lions and Packers. NFC North rivals. Give me the Lions to beat the Packers here. Jordan Love might be out for a couple games with a groin injury. So that makes it even more likely that the Lions are going to win this game. And then we got the Rams and the Seahawks. I'm taking the LA Rams to win this game. And now, briefly, I'm going to give my thoughts and opinion on the whole situation in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. That is the most embarrassing thing to do during a football game. And if you didn't see the video, I highly recommend going and looking it up on YouTube. I cannot play it because I will get demonetized on this video and not be able to make money off of it. But Anthony Richardson basically came out after the game and said that he was, air quote, out of breath. That is why he checked himself out of the game Sunday, in Sunday's game. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but that is why the Colts made the decision to bench him this week. And they're going back to Joe Flacco, which I think is better for all the receivers in Indianapolis. And other news around the NFL before I get into the trade candidates. Stephon Diggs is out for the season with a torn ACL. The Chargers are listening to offers on wide receiver Josh Palmer, which I'll get into that in a second here with my trade candidates. Drake May is in concussion protocol. Sterling Shepard has a hamstring injury for the Buccaneers, which yet another injury to the wide receiver position in Tampa Bay. Will Levis is still out injured. He's questionable for this week. I'm leaning towards him probably not playing. Tua returned from a concussion last week and looked, to say it fairly, he looked good. Jordan Mason left with an injury again on Sunday Night Football, but the 49ers are on their bye this week. They come back, and it sounds like Christian McCaffrey is going to be making his season debut after the bye week, possibly for the 49ers, who are without Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and Deebo Samuel. But Deebo should be back after the bye week. That is your up-to-the-minute NFL injury report. Now, we get to the top 3 trade candidates. At number 3, I've got Browns defensive back Greg Newsome. And the 3 teams that I think should go after him at number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills need help in the secondary. It's clear they need help in the secondary at cornerback, and I think they would be a good landing spot for Greg Newsome. I'm giving it an 80% chance that Greg Newsome goes to Buffalo. At number 2 is the Baltimore Ravens, and I give them a 70% chance to land Greg Newsome. They need all the help they could get at defensive back. They are struggling. Teams are going for 300 or 400 yards passing on them, and they have no answers. And at number 1 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need help at defensive back. They're playing backups at DB other than Christian Izien and Zion McCollum because Jamel Dean is on IR with a hamstring injury. I give the Buccaneers a 90% chance to land Greg Newsome. My number 2 trade candidate is, and I just spoke how the Chargers are listing the offers for this guy. It is Joshua Palmer, wide receiver, Los Angeles Chargers. He's kind of fell out of favor with the new coaching staff in LA. And here's 3 teams that I think could trade for Josh Palmer. Number 3, the Houston Texans. I just mentioned how Stephon Diggs is out injured for the season with a torn ACL and how Nico Collins still isn't back. So they have Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, Robert Woods as their receivers right now. I think Josh Palmer would be a good trade target for them. And I don't think they'd have to give up. They might have to give up a late round pick, which I don't think the Texans would mind doing that. I'm giving the Texans a 65% chance to trade for Josh Palmer. Number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm giving them a 74% chance, and here's why. The Steelers need a number 2 receiver behind George Pickens. And I think Palmer fits that perfectly for the Steelers. And it would be a good trade acquisition for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. And at number 1, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm giving the Buccaneers the highest chance to land Josh Palmer. Because like I said, I don't think it's going to take a day 1 or day 2 pick. I think it's going to be a day 3 pick for Josh Palmer. Maybe a 4th or 5th round pick for Josh Palmer. I give the Buccaneers, like I said, an 84% chance to land Josh Palmer, the wide receiver from the Chargers, due to the Buccaneers really needing a wide receiver because Mike Evans is out till after the bye week. And that's a little scary to me. And then my number 1 trade target, I've talked about him 3 or 4 times on the show. It is Bryce Young, quarterback, Carolina Panthers. The number 3 team that should be picking up the phone to make a phone call to the Panthers about Bryce Young is the Tennessee Titans. And I give the Titans a 70% chance to land Bryce Young. like I said, I've said this in previous episodes. I think Bryce Young needs a change of scenery. Carolina's ruined him, and he needs to get out of Carolina. Carolina is where quarterbacks go to deceased and ruin their career. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at Sam Darnold. Cam Newton was good on Carolina. He's the only exception. But I think if Carolina could get a third or fourth round pick for Bryce Young, they'd probably take it because they want to restart. They have a new coaching staff in there, and they want to get somebody new in there at quarterback. Number two, and I know this one's going to sound a little bit crazy, the Miami Dolphins. And I give the Dolphins a 80% chance to get Bryce Young. Yeah, hear me out, Dolphins fans. I understand you have Tua, but Tua Tags has concussion history. And what happens if he gets one more concussion? He's going to have to retire. And you don't want that. You don't want to lose your quarterback for probably his career, which I don't think he should have came back from this concussion, but that's not my say because I'm not a neurologist. I'm not good. I did take a concussion class, but I'm not a doctor. Anyway, I think the Dolphins should trade for Bryce Young. And at number one, there's two teams on here. The Los Angeles Rams, I give a 92% chance to. And the New York Jets, I give an 89% chance to. Let me start with the Rams and why they're higher than the Jets. I think the Rams should trade for Bryce Young and let him sit behind Matthew Stafford for at least the rest of this year and maybe some of next year so he can actually develop and learn the NFL instead of being thrust into the starting role like he was in Carolina. And then the Jets. Let's face it, Rodgers, I'm not going to say he's washed, but he's not the same Aaron Rodgers he was in Green Bay. And they don't have a suitable replacement for him when he either retires or goes to free agency. And that's why I think Bryce Young would be that suitable replacement for Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Now some dark horses to look out for to get traded. We are going to start with Patriots wide receivers KJ Osborne and Kendrick Bourne. And the three teams that I think should go out and try to trade for them. Number 3 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said about Josh Palmer, I know for a fact to get Osborne or Kendrick Bourne that it's not going to take a day 1 or day 2 pick. It'll take a day 3 pick. And I think the Buccaneers could do that. That's why I give them an 84% chance. If they wanted to go out and trade for wide receiver, that they could do this trade. Number 2, the Houston Texans. And I give them the highest probability to go out and trade for one of these wide receivers. Like I just said, they're without Stephon Diggs the rest of the season. And they're still without Nico Collins. And let's just face it, Robert Woods he's on the wrong side of 30. He's not the same Robert Woods he was in LA or early on in his career. And Xavier Hutchinson, okay, he's a good third receiver. He's not a top 2 receiver. And then, John Mechie, we don't really know what he is because he really hasn't gotten that much playing time. And then number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. I give them a 90% chance to get either one of these receivers. And The Eagles already have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith. Jahan Dotson, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's good, but I don't think he's a top wide receiver. Top 3 wide receiver. Now, if you go out and get a Kendrick Bourne or a KJ Osborne, they can be your slot receiver. And you could have Jahan Dotson learn, but get mentored by one of them. And then here's a couple other guys. Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. I don't think this one happens. I think there's a 40 to 50% chance of him maybe getting traded. He's more likely to get traded in fantasy football than he is real life. And then Panthers running back Miles Sanders. I give it a 70 to 80% chance of him getting traded because the Panthers already came out and said, once Jonathan Brooks is back, it's probably going to be to start, it's going to be a 50-50 split committee backfield between Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks, with Jonathan Brooks eventually taking over the reins as the RB1. And ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, I also have a TikTok that I'm going to start going live on tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And go ahead and give that my TikTok a follow. It is Alec Pecano. And I will be talking about anything from the sports world, college football, NFL, anything and everything about sports. Or if you want, you can also ask me questions during that live on my TikTok. I also have a live stream here tomorrow on YouTube. But that is going to, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads of the Pro Football Podcast, the Fourth and Long Podcast, the College Basketball Show, the Four Quarters Podcast, which will be returning in 2 weeks as Friday. And same with the Fourth and Long Podcast. Friday is the last Fourth and Long Podcast with Bradley and Alec for 2 weeks. November 19th will be the next one after Friday. But I will still be doing videos solo by myself for those 2 weeks. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Pro Football Podcast. I will see everybody back here tomorrow at noon. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.